Imagine applying for a firearm license, being refused, and then discovering that the very system meant to hear your appeal has effectively been left unable to function. That is the reality facing many South African firearm owners today. In this episode, I'm joined by Paul Oxley, the chairman of GOSAC, Gun Owners of South Africa, to unpack why the organization has now taken the Minister of Police to court, what the Firearms Appeal Board is supposed to do, and why this case could have major consequences for firearm owners across the country. Paul, good morning. Welcome to the channel.
Morning, Rian. Thanks for having me.
Paul, just to get viewers on the same page who may not be as familiar with this issue, can you maybe take us back to the beginning and explain what the Firearms Appeal Board is, why it exists, and how we got to this situation where we are at the moment?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so the Firearms Appeal Board is what's known as the internal remedy. So the problem is, so the police, when they make a decision to refuse you or whatever, they are functus officio. They are now their official function is now stopped. You can't convince them. You can't get back in touch with the police and say, yeah, but you said I don't have dedicated sports status, but here it is. You can't communicate anymore with them. They are now locked off. Once they've made a decision, they've made a decision. It's clear. You have to then take them through a process, and the first step in the process is the internal remedy, and that is the appeal board. So, if you wanted to go further, or if you want to move your application, or you want to query something, or you can't talk to the police anymore. They are now functus officio. So you have to then use the internal remedy before you can get to an external remedy. Now, the external remedy is taking the police to court. You can't take them to court unless you've exhausted the internal remedy. So since the 15th of January in 2025, there hasn't been an appeal board. So they're the internal remedy. So they've disabled it, it's not accidental. None of the stuff happens in a vacuum. It's not because the police are blindingly incompetent, which they are. It's because they've actually got bad intentions, malfoy. They are trying to embugger the process to prevent you from getting justice. So all the minister has to do is appoint a new board. That's all he has to do. He's required by law, before the previous board's term expires, he's required by law to appoint new members to a board, and he just failed to do that. And as I say, this is not accidental. Anyway, so now you don't have an internal remedy. You can never actually get to your external remedy because you haven't passed through the gate. Yes.
And now you remain stuck there. What are the legal duties of the Firearms Appeal Board?
So they're supposed to be independent. So the previous chair of the board was actually the person that the civilian secretary of police drafted in to try to create what's known as the desktop study. Because as you may know, 10 or more years ago, 12 years ago actually, the police asked the Wits School of Governance to examine the Firearms Control Act and tell us where the problems were, which the Wits School of Governance did, but the answers they gave weren't what the civilian secretary of police wanted to hear, because the answers they gave was there's nothing wrong with the FCA. The problem is with the implementation. The problem is with policing. So they hid the report for years and years and years until Jonathan Deal and Safe Citizen managed to drag it into the light through a Freedom of Information request, a Promotion of Access to Information Act request, a PIA request. They dragged this into the light, and then the police secretary scrambled around. The police secretary is not a neutral player. The civilian secretary of police is there for the police, not there for the civilians. understand. So then the Civilian Secretary of Police scrambled around frantically to try to justify why they needed a new Firearms Control Act amendment bill. And they discovered, and we told them that they didn't have the steps that were necessary was participation, which they hadn't conducted. But also they were supposed to do a socio-economic impact assessment. They never did a socio-economic impact assessment. So then they scrambled around and they created a socio-economic impact assessment report based on what they wanted to achieve, not what society showed, not what the research showed. And then to back that up, they created what they called a desktop study. The desktop study is basically the researchers at the Secretary of Police's office scrambling around trying to find justifications for the various measures they wanted to implement in the new Firearms Control Amendment Bill. So that's putting things back. That's putting the cart before the horse. That's starting with the end result you want and working backwards to the justification and to create research which supports the end result you want. And then they tried to force it down our throats on a number of occasions via meetings and with individual organizations. They always get an individual organization into a room and then they try and force it down your throat because you're as an organization, then you feel less powerful. Anyway, so they tried to do this a number of times, and the person that was leading that charge, this is where the circle completes itself. The person who was leading that charge was the current chair of the Firearms Appeal Board, who's supposed to be neutral and independent. So it's all a farce.
So you said the board was supposed to have been replaced or reappointed in January 2025 already. So it's almost a year and a half.
Year and a half down the road.
Has government offered any explanations for this at all?
No. So what's quite interesting is we took a while. So in November last year, we actually sent GOSA Law, our in-house counsel, through on an Uber through to Pretoria to Volkstem Avenue to Faulty Towers, and we went and looked for the appeals board. She went there and she rang the bell at the door and said, "I'd like to speak to the appeals board," because in terms of the act, you're actually allowed to present audio evidence to the board, oral evidence to the board. So we went and looked for them, and they said, "No, sorry, nobody here by that name at this address." So that's what we did. So then we started formulating we wrote a very strongly worded letter in November, and we said to them, "Please show your workings. Where's the board? We reliably understand that the board doesn't exist anymore. You know that the Firearms Control Act cannot proceed without the board. Please appoint the board." And we gave them time, and they ignored us, etc., etc. So this year, we sued them. We went to the South Gauteng High Court because you don't have such a long waiting period as the North Gauteng, and South Gauteng has exactly the same authority as North Gauteng over this matter. So we went to the South Gauteng High Court and we said, "Please tell the minister to obey the law, please." And the minister didn't get back to us. So we said, okay, well, then we intend to,
Paul, just before we go to where we stand with the situation as is, because I know the minister has now appealed this whole thing. I just want to...
No, not appealed. He hasn't done a damn thing.
Oh, okay. What are the practical consequences of this failure for ordinary firearm owners? Hunters, sports shooters, collectors, the lot, because I assume that in all this time, there are now like about 1 billion appeals just hanging. Nothing's happening with it.
Well, people have been submitting appeals, and then this DFO saying, "Well, the appeal board's not getting back to us, so you must resubmit an application." So the guys are going and doing new applications, but the problem with the new application is that it doesn't address the problem. You know, if the problem is that they've said to you that you don't have dedicated status, or that your dedicated status has with an accredited association has expired, you can't repair that by applying anew, de novo. You have to go back and fix the problem. And if the problem is that the police don't want to accept that your dedicated status is still valid because you've got a firearm that keeps it valid, that whole argument, let's not go there right now. But anything like that, if they say, I don't know, you've got a criminal record, which you don't have, you can't repair that without there being an appeal board. Because once the police have refused an application, as I said, it's sealed. They can't reverse their decision without the appeal board telling them to reverse the decision. So it's fine and well if your stuff all goes through swimmingly and you have your competence in place and you know, you send your stuff in and through a bit of a struggle or whatever, or after 2 or 3 months or 4 months, you get your license. That's fine. Or you get your competence. They're even refusing competences now. So which is a problem, particularly if you're in the security industry and you need your competence in order to get a job, to work. You can't get a job because the police have said, no, well, you've got the wrong competence, or blah, 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 whatever the situation is, or we don't like you, or, you know. So there's people that are out of work, not just firearm owners. There's people that are out of work in the security industry because they can't get past that hurdle. Once the police say they've refused you, your next step must be the appeal board. But you can't get to that step if there's no appeal board. And the police don't tell you this.
Of course.
They say, oh, submit a new application. So then the guy goes and gets in the back of the queue again, and another 6 months down the line, he gets a refusal again. He says, oh, well, what now? Maybe I should go and get a job as a, you know, pumping gas at the petrol station rather. And it's a huge, so it has societal impact way beyond just firearms, just firearm ownership. And the fact of the matter is that the Act mandates the minister. He doesn't have a discretion. He doesn't have an option. He must have an appeal board. He must appoint members to an appeal board. There's no good saying, meh, I don't really think so. That's not good enough. So yeah, to get back to the track, so we sued the minister, and they have a certain amount of time to respond, to give us a responding affidavit, or to indicate whether they're going to oppose the action that we're taking.
So you basically, well, you're basically asking the minister to do his job, right? That's what you're asking for.
Yeah, pretty much. We're not asking for anything special. We're just asking him to obey the bloody law as it's written.
And where we stand at the moment, you said the minister hasn't done anything. He hasn't responded.
Well, they ignored us.
Nothing.
They ignored us. They you know, you have a certain period that you have to, when you're suing the state, you have to give them extra leeway, and you have to give them more time than what you would give an ordinary person, an ordinary company. So we gave them all the time because we know that we don't want to get kicked out of court on the basis that the judge thinks we're being mean to the minister.
Of course.
So we went the whole gamut. We gave them extra time. We made sure that it wasn't over a weekend, and et cetera, et cetera. And the minister ignored us. He didn't tell us whether he was going to oppose the action, which is his first step, the opposing affidavit. So we waited, and when he was out of time by about a week, you know, the time period for him to respond had expired by about a week. We went to the court and we made we enrolled the matter on the unopposed roll, because he hadn't opposed us. He hadn't told us that he was going to oppose us. So now, just like, you know, when the banks want to swipe your house from you, they put a matter on the unopposed roll, and they hope that you don't pitch up in court.
Yes.
And then they just, by magic, your house disappears. So we thought, well, it's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we went and enrolled him on the unopposed roll, which for the 10th of June. So that's next Wednesday.
Okay.
He didn't respond. And like about a week after that, suddenly we get the state's attorney gets in touch with us and says, whoa, 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 we intend to oppose this.
Yeah.
So we said to the state's attorney, well, show us you're working. How are you going to oppose being told to obey the law? Because that's what we're asking the court to determine. We're asking the court just to tell him to obey the law. Not for any special circumstance or anything. We just want the minister to obey the law, the way everybody else in South Africa has to. But so the minister didn't get back to us again. So we said, okay, well, we'll wait for your opposing affidavit, because we want to see, we've got to have an argument in court, but we'll see what your argument is before we take the matter off the unopposed roll, because now we have to put it on the opposed roll, and that means kicking it down the road by another 18 months or something.
Oh, okay.
So we said, well, this matter is urgent. We're going to hold back. We're not taking it to the urgent court. We're taking it in the normal course. But we'll wait to see what your arguments are before we actually remove it from the roll. And we've heard nothing. We're now just over a week before the actual court date. We've heard nothing back from the minister or the state's attorney. We've told them that we've kept it on the, in fact, last Thursday, I think, we informed the state's attorney, which we don't have to do, but we've done it as a courtesy, and also because we don't want the court to think we're trying to sneak things through the back door.
Yes.
We told the state's attorney, listen, we're still going. We've still got a court date in 2 weeks' time, which is now, well, 10 days' time right now. We'll be in court. We hope we see you there. And we've heard nothing. I guarantee, well, they've got a problem, because how do you explain that you don't believe you have to obey the law? How do you explain that?
And you're a whole minister.
And you're a whole minister, you know, a whole state's attorney. So it's quite exciting from the perspective that we believe we're going to go to court on Wednesday, and we're going to get an unopposed order against the minister. They'll probably try to appeal it. It's unappealable because there are no grounds. They haven't got a defense, so they won't have any grounds for appeal. So they're going to try and pull a technicality and say, oh, but you know, we didn't have enough time, or the cat had kittens, or something like that. And that's why. But we want to hear that. They must come and tell us that. But now they're all sitting around in a room, probably scratching their heads, going, what now?
What now? Paul.
So anyway, so as things stand at the moment, next Wednesday,
court.
South Gauteng High Court, the old Rand Supreme Court, and we're there, and we're going to take our order. I guarantee you that the state's attorney will pitch up on the steps of the court with some other story.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's going to happen. I'm pretty certain.
Sure.
It's so disconcerting that you have to continually drag the state to court to just do the job that they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that we're paying them to do.
It's this.
Remember, they're not doing this job for charity.
Yes. Yeah. Finally, for those watching who appreciate the work that you guys at GOSA are doing, can you just give us a little bit more background and info on the organization, what role you play in defending firearm owners' rights, and how people can support you and join you and get involved? I can just tell you that from my side, what I'm going to be doing, what I always do, is I display the GOSA website in the top right-hand corner of the video, and it stays there for the duration of the video.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Riaan, yeah, so GOSA's actually supposedly a new kid on the block. We've only been around we've been around for about 20 years, more than 20 years actually. But in our first, we did a lot of activism behind the scenes. We didn't actually go and challenge the police and stuff. We were thrust into the limelight at the National Firearms Summit in Parliament in 2025.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, 2015.
15, yes.
And after that, we decided there needs to be a whole lot more robust activism. There has to be action somehow. We also in that year launched our first we incubated our first sister organization, which is the Girls on Fire. And they've just, primarily because I sat in a meeting with Gun Free South Africa down in Cape Town, and a couple of the idiots that were sitting next to me were from the press, and one of them said to me, "Sure, I could never work in the gun field because, all these middle-aged or these white men that are desperate to hang on to their guns, that just infuriates me." I came back from that meeting, and within 2 days we had something called Girls on Fire. They've run highly successful programs every single year. In fact, we just came back on Saturday from a program, and I'll post you some pictures.
Okay.
Where we had 28 people, including 4 people from the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, not gun people, on the course.
Okay.
So they do a lot of work with GBV and anti-GBV, and a lot of political work with ladies, putting them through training courses, and it goes like a train. It's fantastic. We also have another program which we've incubated. Girls on Fire is now their own independent, non-governmental, non-profit organization. We've also incubated something which we tried out a couple of years ago, but we didn't really have the people to run it. We now have the people to run it. Something called Gun Buddies, which is a program for children from kindergarten up. In the kindergarten type ages, we're trying to teach kids how not to get shot. We're trying to teach them, the whole NRA, Eddie the Eagle, stroke Grandpa Jack from America. Their whole program of, if somebody brings a gun to school, you come across a gun in society, stop, don't touch, call a parent, walk away. So it starts up with how not to get shot, and it starts bringing the people into other fields from there, which might interest them. We're not trying to force anybody to do anything.
Sure.
But GOSA runs, I think, the only public benefit legal service for specialist firearms legal service in the country. We have an internal counsel. We have an attorney that sits in the 2 or 3 offices away from me. And she's very versed in the Firearms Control Act and also in the Criminal Procedures Act. She worked before for legal aid. So she's been at the coalface. She's done meatball surgery, where they walk into court in the mornings and they get given half a meter of files to go and immediately defend people. So she knows what a story is. She's worked here for, now 5 years, almost coming up to 5 years. She's very, very versed in the Firearms Control Act. And she does all sorts of other things. She does letters of demand and stuff like that, which has been hugely successful. But we have a number of other people. We have marketing and sales people that are now helping us to get gun buddies off the ground. We've got membership people that deal with memberships. We for relatively small membership fees, we produce a lot of. We give you free advice. Anybody can phone in and speak to GOSA Law. It's only when GOSA Law starts doing paperwork that costs start occurring. But members get discounts on that, and they get it, and sometimes they get it for free. We do inquiries, etc., etc. We do the whole pre-legal thing, and we do the legal thing. We give good advice, and we do the fighting. Like this thing, we've self-funded our legal actions ever since 2018, when SA Hunters got kicked out of the Constitutional Court, and they were going to come for all of our firearms. We jumped in, as you recall, and we took the matter to the Pretoria High Court, and we got an interdict against the police, preventing them from taking firearms.
Yes. We
held that interdict for 2 years. And the interdict was on very thin grounds. I remember Martin Hood at the time said to us that, we pulled a very big rabbit out of a very small hat. And then we held that interdict for 2 years. It was then overturned in the next year in 2021, I think, or 2021. It was overturned in the Supreme Court of Appeal, and then the very next year, or no, later that same year, the Fidelity matter went to the Constitutional Court, and we were amicus in the Fidelity matter.
Okay.
And the judges, some of the same judges that sat in the Supreme Court of Appeal, reversed their decision in the Constitutional Court and said, well, guns are actually property, and you can reapply for your firearm license de novo from new. And guess what? Well, after we spoke to the drafting team from the civilian secretary, they said, well, you can actually keep your guns, even though the licenses have expired, you can keep them in your own safe at home. So that was, you know, we've been relatively successful on that front. But yeah, we keep fighting the fight.
Well, to the viewers, thank you for watching. If you found value in this discussion, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And also remember to share this video far and wide. If you'd like to support the work GOSA is doing, be sure to go follow all their channels. They've got a big page on Facebook. Paul, I think you've got 140,000 people following you on Facebook, if I remember correctly. So follow them on Facebook.
They're actually members. They're not just followers, they're actually members. They accept a code of conduct when they join. So they're actually, that's a membership criteria.
So go follow them there. I'll be displaying their website on the top right-hand corner of the screen for the duration of the video. Go check it out. If you want to get involved there, please feel free. Until next time, stay informed, stay safe. And if you're interested in any of the training offered under the Lone Operator and the Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions programs, there is always a link in the description below. Check it out. We look forward to seeing you on a range one of these days. Paul, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Riaan. It was great.